Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Growth Series with Raksha Dr. Life. What I'm loving about this series is not only these conversations, but also the international flair that they have become. With me today is Dr. Bobby, all the way from Australia. Bobby, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I don't want to butcher your last name, but I'm thrilled that we made our time zones and everything work so that we could have this chat today.
Yeah, I love it. Melissa, it's awesome being on the call, right? So yeah, this is time zone for me now, 7 a.m. in the morning, but I must tell you, I usually am up from 4:30. So I am rocking and peaking at my best now, ready to go all out. So I love these early morning chats. So I guess a little bit of an introduction of myself. So yeah, I practice down here in Australia, as you can probably tell through my accent. Very much so. And I mean, a journey of practice, really, we have 6 chiropractors in our family now, but the way that it all kicked off is I was the first one, and I didn't really have any clue what I was doing. So one thing that I did know is that I had a lot to learn. And so I was quite blessed and fortunate that early in my career, I stumbled upon some great mentors that really kind of showed me the path and really led us to build an amazing practice down here in Sydney. So right now we have multiple locations here in Sydney, but I guess what we're really well known for is I like to call it a mothership practice that we built up to. It's on track now this year to get close to cracking $5 million in collections annually in one single location, which has been pretty awesome. So we've got a multiple DC set up there. Obviously, we have everything from marketing teams and sales teams and office managers and all that good stuff. But yeah, we run a very much principled chiropractic office. You know, all of that, the majority of it so far has been built on the back of adjustments in the principal chiropractic way. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And you know, in recent times, probably the last maybe 5 years, a lot of people have reached out and been like, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? How do you guys get 150 new patients a month? And how do you process 150 new patients a month, right? How do you grow on such a big trajectory like that? So I went down into the coaching world. I was always the kind of person, Melissa, that's like, hey, you know what? I've done this thing and it works really well. You should just copy it. And then it's like, all right, here's how you do it. You ready? Here's step 1, 2, 3, 4. Just follow that formula. Don't change anything and watch what happens. So it's just kind of a natural fit that we opened up. You know, I opened up my book to a certain amount of people in a mastermind format where we teach those same principles through the remarkable practice. So right now I find myself spending a lot of time also in the US. I do a lot of speaking in the US, a lot of speaking here in Australia, in New Zealand, and yeah, and then now I get the great pleasure to be to chat to you and your audience now on this awesome podcast this morning.
Wow, I love it. There's so many things that I want to ask you. First of all, I love that there's 6 chiropractors in your family. We were talking in our pre-chat about my youngest son going off to chiropractic school, hopefully not far from you next year. So that can, be definitely an interesting expansion. So did you grow up with like a vitalistic philosophy, or you being the first one, are you the one that introduced everyone else in your family to the principles of chiropractic?
Yeah, that's a great question. In short, the answer is no. I did not at all grow up in this vitalistic-based philosophy where people were getting adjusted. I was the first person to ever get adjusted. I would have been maybe 18, 19 at that stage. And there was no one in my family that was a chiropractor. So I like to say, Melissa, that, on some level, I guess, when I say we, my wife is a chiropractor as well. So myself and my wife are a chiropractor, and we graduated at the same time. So we built everything together. So when I say we, I'm alluding to her and myself. We inspired the others. So pretty quickly after that, my brother became a chiropractor. 2 of our cousins became a chiropractor. I became chiropractors, another one. And then we've got one studying at the moment, right? So yeah, quickly it just started to unfold like that. And I guess I like to say we inspired them. They were looking at us going, man, what a rocking career/life these chiropractors get to live. And some of my cousins that followed us into chiropractic, they were previously doing things like IT, completely unrelated to health. We had another one that was studying Bachelor of Health Science, so like epidemiology and things like that. And they were out in their careers working and just watching us come home and come to family gatherings and parties, just absolutely in love with what we do. And they, I guess you could say, realized that was rare. Most people don't fall in love with what they do, which I find quite sad. But they were seeing that, and so that got them curious. And yeah, long story cut short, they enrolled in chiropractic school, and now we got 6 of us.
It's incredible, really. I mean, I was interviewed on another podcast recently, and one of the questions was, what do I love, this 23 years later? And one of my answers was, how many people have work that first of all, that they love, like you said, but also work
Yep.
that keeps evolving and showing you different opportunities, but also work that keeps your fire lit. Like I've seen so many miracles and so many amazing things happen. I said it this morning in practice, like it's not hard to be excited to go to work, if I even call it work every day, because of the things that we see. So that's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad you feel that way as well. And it's no doubt that there's a ripple effect, that your enthusiasm and your excitement and your own personal sense of vitality has inspired others. My son said the same thing to me. He's like, I just see, because his father's a chiropractor as well. He's like, I see the energy and I just see what the vitalistic lifestyle, how it's what is given the two of you and how you live. And I want a little bit of that. So, let's talk a little bit about mindset, because when we talk about practice growth, clearly already from the little things I know about you, you're an early riser, maybe by natural tendencies, but you must have rhythms and routines that you prioritize for your health. Maybe you do them in the morning in general. I know that you appreciate the values of being physically and mentally healthy to grow a business. So what are some
Yeah.
things that you do for yourself to stay healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on the mark. So, no, being an early riser is not by nature a natural thing. Dr. Melissa, let me just make that be well known. So, in the early days, that wasn't how I approached the day at all. However, they say that success leaves clues. Okay, so over the years, one thing that I have done very well is I've documented my journey. In fact, right here next to me on the table, I've got this little journal, and one of my best practices is that I document every single day, and I write my goals and rewrite them multiple times a day inside of this journal, because success leaves clues. And so one of the clues that I recognize is that certain behaviors that lead to a certain outcome. I think most people understand that if you exercise, after the exercise session, you're going to feel mentally refreshed. Okay. One of my close friends, a guy called Dan Martell, talks about this. He says we exhaust the body to fatigue the mind, right? So, sorry, we exhaust the body to replenish the mind. So fatigue the body, right, to replenish the mind. So I look at it exactly like that. I know that if I have a behavior of exercising, that's going to lead to a more refreshed me and give me mental clarity. So then I also recognize that, waking up early might be different for you where you're at. For me, it's 4:30 in the morning. I get a good 2 to 3 hour window of just uninterrupted time where everybody else is still asleep. There's no notifications going off. There's no interruptions going off at all. And I'm at my most refreshed state, my most productive state. And, those first 3 hours of the day, literally I can get 80% of my most important work done. The old 80-20 rule, it happens in those first 3 hours of the day. So yes, part of that 3 hours is a health, I guess you could call it a routine. You do go into a certain routine around certain things that you do in the morning from a health perspective. But it's definitely a mind routine that helps sharpen my mind. And I get a lot of stuff, amazing stuff done in that first 3 hours of the day. So that was the best practice that I just decided to adopt. And, some people would say, well, how do you get up so early? And the answer is very simple. You ready? Just go to bed earlier. That's it.
Mm.
So my life in the evening is pretty boring. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, definitely. Fast
Yeah.
asleep, and that's just what's enabled me to do it.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me also, from what I've heard with you, with your ideas of attracting new patients, but also then having the systems in place like that, habits and strategies. And, it's not just the ideas that are important to you or what you excel at, but also the ability to translate them into something like a routine or like a system or methodology that if you're coaching other people on how to do it as well. So morning time, yes, go to bed earlier, have an earlier quiet evening. What are some of the things that you have found from a ritual standpoint that have really helped you and your wife grow your practices?
That's a really good question. And if I take a moment to reflect on that, what's a ritual that we have taken on board that's really helped us have the amazing growth that we've had? I think if I was going to summarize it down to one, it's one that I've already mentioned, but I'll unpack it for you in a little bit more detail. And that is making sure that I meticulously plan every single day. So my routine works in the way where I look at my Sunday. On Sunday, I look at my week. During the week, I plan out all of my major goals and I plan out what my focus points are for every single day. So for example, Mondays and Fridays are generally meeting and training days. We do a lot of team training. We do a lot of meetings. I stack Mondays and Fridays as my meeting and training days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're my creative days. So I wake up in the morning and I create, connected to my creator. So I find that those days I'm at my absolute sharpest when it comes to creating. And that means creating assets, creating content, whether that creation means that we're creating assets which are lead magnets, which are giveaways, which are marketing assets, which are videos to attract more people inside of our world, whether that creation means that we're creating tools or templates to help our team execute things more streamlined, whether that creation means that, you know what, we're creating new relationships, new networks. Literally just before this call, I was just finishing off a new contract for a buyer that we're doing of a separate business that we're going to amalgamate into our mothership, right? So an acquisition. So that was a creative process that I just finished literally right before jumping onto this podcast. So that was happening at 5 a.m. this morning. So I would say that the number one thing, without a shadow of a doubt, is the ability to plan out your future. And it starts off, of course, people have like yearly goals and quarterly goals, but you got to distill it down, I believe, into a much smaller bite-sized piece. So every Sunday I plan out every single day. And then every day I plan out the following day. And I ask myself, what are my 3 biggest goals today? What are my 3 biggest bottlenecks inside of my business that if we were to unblock these bottlenecks, have the biggest impact in moving us towards our goal? I ask myself that question every single morning. What is the number one bottleneck of my business stopping us from going to the next level? And I spend the first 3 hours of my day attacking that bottleneck. And so that only happens by design, and absolutely backwards engineering my yearly goals into quarterlies, into monthlies, into weeklies, into daily action steps. And then final thing I'm going to add on that, Melissa, and I could do a whole podcast on just this process, and literally I have in the past. But the final thing that I'm going to add is, you know, many people, they say fail their New Year's resolutions because they set a New Year's resolution and they never look at it again. Okay. I would also say many people fail their day because they plan their day once and never look at it again. I have worked out that in the last 10 years, the amount of times in a day that I re-anchor myself and I look at my goals that I've set for the day is directly proportional to my chance of achieving them. So I minimum will have a look at my daily planner, and the goals are written at the top of every page. I rewrite them every single night. I minimum look at those goals and then my action steps for the day 5 times a day. And I set up anchors where when I do certain things, it re-anchors me to that goal. So by doing that, it keeps me front of mind, and it's directly related in proportion to my chance of hitting those goals.
You sounds like you're clearly anchored on your why, right? My question to you was going to be, you know, it's great. Like you and I could both sit here and be like, okay, these are things that I do to create my mind. And you coach people, I coach people. And some people find it really difficult to actually follow through, right? They get stuck. I talk about it being, you know, you got the creative process, but you also have to then produce, right? You can't stay stuck in the clouds and this great idea, great idea. You've got to actually then do something and then take a step back and look at the results and whether it was worth it. So what would your advice be to someone who's listening to you right now or watching you and being like, okay, yeah, I should do this too, but they fail on the execution piece? Because you must have clients or friends or people that cannot achieve their goals the same way that you have. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I look at it when I distill it down into a 2-step process. So step number 1, the 2-step process looks like this. Step number 1 is ideation. Ideation means that you want to have times where you create ideas. Now, I find that my ideas happen best when I'm doing 2 things. 1, through masterminds, so through mixing with other awesome people that are rocking and rolling. And you want those people to be at a level higher than you. Okay, that's just, if you have 5 billionaires in a room, okay, and you're not a billionaire, you're going to become the 6th billionaire. Okay, that's just been proven. Just like if you're hanging out, then there's 5 drunks in a room, guess who's going to become the 6th drunk? Okay, most likely you. So we want to get into masterminds, and preferably want to be masterminds that are at a higher level than you. Number 1. Number 2, I find that my greatest clarity happens when I've actually got time off and I'm recharging my battery. So that means vacations, that means going away, that means getting perspective. In fact, tomorrow I go on vacation. We meticulously plan our year around our vacations because I find that that's where our clarity is at its greatest, right? So the 2-step process is number 1, ideation. And that's how I get the ideas, through masterminds primarily and through time off. And then step number 2 on the back of that is actually executing on those ideas. Now, that execution piece is where a lot of people stumble. And an example of this, Melissa, is I'll speak to people that will just be, you know, I spoke to this one chiropractor a few weeks ago, and he's like, oh, I've got a goal this year to read 52 books. So a book a year. I'm like, okay, cool. I get where that's coming from. But how much of those 52 books will you really be implementing into action steps that's going to lead you to an outcome? I would rather actually read 3 books in a year, but execute everything in that book as close as possible to how that author has described. Because if you think about it for a moment, a book is one of the greatest ever investments that you can make, period, full stop. Because you've got somebody's life work in an area where they've dedicated their life to developing mastery. So this person has put 10, 20, 30, 40 years and like absolutely nailed an area of their life. And then they've put it together in a book, which they sell for $30. Okay. And your greatest ideas are within that book. Now, you can either just breeze through that book in a week and go, oh, great, gave me a bit of a jacuzzi experience. I felt good while I was reading it, but it actually hasn't led to any sustainable changes because I haven't implemented from that book. So I would rather read 3, 4, 5, 6 books, but implement as much as possible on the back of that and take action on the back of that. And, in answer to your question, I think that action is just a habit. It's when you get into analysis paralysis, then you don't take action on anything. Whereas when you get into the habit of just executing, then you start taking action on everything. But again, it goes down to planning. I want to make sure that I plan my day, and that if I'm regularly re-anchored to those goals, then I'm going to be taking the action steps needed to actually achieve them, move towards them.
I think it takes courage and confidence though, too. I think there's a lot of people who can do all the things we're talking about here, but then that ability to take a step forward, there's some belief system, there's something within them that maybe they don't have the confidence to boldly take those next steps. So that's, obviously we're all here for personal growth and development and to examine the things that may be holding us back. So I really like that you said that you make time to be creative, because I think creativity is in all of us. And yet a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, especially docs. Some docs can get really, analytical, and they're really good at systems and great at communication, but the creativity is part of our soul. And whether that comes up in how you market or how you lead your team or just how you have some fun in your life, I think that's an invaluable part something that you just shared there. So you make time to create new ideas and keep yourself inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back for a second when you said it takes courage, and I agree with that 100%. I think a lot of people look at a situation and they fear it, and then the fear paralyzes them, or on some level the fear slows them down or stops them, and success loves speed, right? So the thing that's really helped me with this, and this is something early in my career that I heard through an early mentor of mine, Dr. John DeMartini, probably a lot of people have heard of him, is he said fear can be viewed in one of two ways. It can either be viewed as a protective mechanism to stop you from doing certain things, okay, so you should stay away from it, or fear can be viewed as your path towards your destiny, which means continually seeking out things that scare you, and those things actually mean that you should do them because it's your path towards your destiny. So I've adopted that second premise in my life, that when I look at something and there's an element of fear, that's a really good thing, because I feel as though I'm about to do something that I haven't done before, and it's natural to have fear around that, but that's exactly where the growth lives, right? And
I
so
think where the fear also comes into is the fear of trying something and failing. And I think that people need to reroute their attitude towards failing, because I agree with you, and the action is a habit. Like, you also don't get any information about yourself or the results of your idea if you never do it. So I think people will, I want to get clarity and I want to sit and journal. Great. But you also need to get clarity by trying that thing and then seeing what happens and actually doing it, because otherwise it's just a dream that you don't even know how it's going to work in your practice and your relationships with your health. So I think the fear for people lies in trying it, absolutely what you said, but I think it's that fear of failure that really kicks people around.
Yep, no, I agree with that 100%. But it's like I always look at it and go, what's the worst that could happen? What's my worst case scenario? So if I did this thing and it completely went the worst way, what would that look like? And very often, Melissa, what I find is that the answer to that question is not that bad. Like, I look at it and I go, it's not that bad. But then I also like to ask myself, what's the best case scenario? So if we were to nail it, what would that look like? And that excites me. So that's what gets me going.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had some incredible mentors in your life from your early days and your early influences in chiropractic. How important do you think, I know you just said that, having a mastermind and being inspired by people around you who are doing more or next level stuff than you, but for new people listening, new grads, like, how important do you feel that having mentors, coaches, colleagues, like that kind of other perspective is for your own growth?
Yeah, having mentors in my life is the most important thing for growth. I would put it at the top of the list. And the reason for that is because it makes you realize what's possible. Okay, it gets you out of your head and it makes you realize what's possible. And I'll just go back to what I said before. If you have 5 drunks in a room and you're the 6th person, you're going to be the 6th drunk. That's been demonstrated over the years. If you look at it through your own life, that's been demonstrated as well from the days that we were in school. Your parents would say to you, hey, I don't want you hanging out with that person. All right. Oh, those guys, they're not a good fit. I don't want you hanging out with them. Hey, little Johnny is amazing. Why don't you spend more time with Johnny? So we innately know, and we teach our kids, right? We kind of coach our kids into who they should spend time with. And it's actually interesting. I sent a podcast to my wife about this the other day, and on the podcast, had someone talking about how when their children hang out with other children, how this parent basically makes an assessment on that parent, and they can kind of know whether they want their children to hang out with that parent's child, right? So I look at it and I go, from early days, we innately know that the people that you're around influence you. And then if you look at your own behaviors, it's like, yeah, when I looked at my own journey, who I was in primary school was basically a manifestation of who I spent my most time with. And my best friend in primary school, I still remember him, was a guy called Hugo. Then it's like, all right, in high school, the people that I spend in high school, I end up becoming a version of them. And I remember my best friend in high school was a guy called Pingy. And so, then I went out, and when I was in school studying chiropractic, the people that I hung out with chiropractic, I would be a version of them. So it's like, now when you're in actually, the profession, or if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business builder or a business owner listening to this, the level that you aspire to get to, just find people that are already there, and you'll naturally start being like that. So for me, that mentorship and leaning into other people, I feel as though as human beings, we're designed for that connection. And if you want evidence of that, just, look at 2020, 2022, when everyone was disconnected, and, all the chaos that led to.
Yeah, no kidding. Now you've had the experience using all of that leverage and all of those mentorship and scaling, first of all, growing your what do you call it, the mothership, growing one practice, right? And now, so you've had the experience of first growing a practice to a large scale, bringing in associates. And then it sounds to me that you've also had the experience of scaling it, or your business, and having multiple practices. I don't know if they're under the same umbrella or they're just other practices that you're part of.
Yeah, so yes, so they're under a different umbrella. I've got my hand, I guess you could say, in multiple different businesses and multiple different practices. And I guess where that comes from is I feel extremely blessed and fortunate. I feel as though chiropractic has provided us with an absolute dream life. And in the beginning, yes, I think most of us were trying to build a great practice to satisfy our own needs on whatever level that is, right? You want to show that you're successful. You want to show that, the 5, 6, 7 years of study were worth it. You want to buy the dream house, buy the dream cars, have the dream vacations. And you know what? You can do all of that. Absolutely. But the thing that I actually realized, Melissa, is the greatest joy is for me is actually in helping others do that. And it's funny how cliche that can sound, but how accurate that actually is. So with time, I was just always ask myself the question about, this is great. I love the life that I live. And I would think that that's the norm, but then I look around and I see that it's absolutely not the norm. And so I guess that's where that desire always was inbuilt in me, or became further ingrained in me. And, I want to get what I know, because I don't think that I'm special, to be honest. I think that it's something that anyone can do. And I want to give it to other people, because I know that, you can achieve anything that you want in your life if you surround yourself with the right people and you apply the right focus and energy into the right areas.
I agree with that. But I also think that you're special, right? Because I think that, and I think that actually, again, it sounds kind of cliche and all that, but I think we all are. And I think the more that we understand our true strengths and lean into those more and work from those, there's lots of docs that realize that they are brilliant at running a business, and they at some point step out of practice because they love the business more than the clinical stuff. There's plenty of docs that really love just going to work and clinically working, and they don't want to run a business. They are amazing associates. There's people that have skills in video and audio, and people that that they're kind of boring to watch. So I think that the more that we can all lean into what brings us joy, because that usually is aligned with our strengths, and that helps us serve the world in our own unique way. So I really love that you've realized for yourself, like, what brings you joy in helping other people and helping them grow their practices. And clearly it shows already in our conversation here. So if you were to think back to, and maybe the things that you're currently doing, but if we were to still try to focus on growth, and I think we've so far touched on for personal growth and mindset and mentorship, but are there any things that you find currently right now have been really, the most important things you could be doing to grow your business to the size that it is right now?
That's a really good question. Let me think about the answer to that, because I want to make sure I give you guys the absolute gold here. So the questions I can rephrase, I want to make sure I heard it properly, is we all know there's multiple things that you can be doing to grow, but what would I say is the most important thing to focus on to grow? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or if there's a couple, look, I know you have a very big practice. You've got associates. I mean, I'd love to talk to you
Mhm.
about working with your wife, hiring great associates, like whatever marketing things. Sure, these are all things that
Uh-huh.
are part of practice growth, and whether we have time
Yeah.
to cover all these or not. But if you think about, you're not running a small shop, you've got a big team and you've got a big volume business there. So are there
Yeah.
things that you would say have been the keys to your growth overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, there are multiple. However, if I was going to distill it down into a way that anyone could grab this and digest it, here's what I would say. For me, business is about there is right now, if I asked you, Melissa, what could we be doing to grow our practices? We could easily come up with a list of 100 things, right? We could probably come up with a list of 1,000 things.
Hmm.
Everything from altering, slightly tweaking our initial consult form to add this question about is there anyone else that you know that you want to get assessed? Okay. So we could come up with 1,000 things of what we could be doing to grow our business. However, that doesn't mean that we should be doing all of them. So in business, the thing that separates people who scale that I seek, and we work with a lot of practices that are multi seven-figure practices, and I can tell you, in chiropractic, I think it is possible. We're getting people that are getting close in a single location to an 8-figure office. Okay. So the thing that I see that's in common with these people that are absolutely crushing it, in not just chiropractic, but in business, is they learn this principle of sequencing. And sequencing means to focus on the right thing at the right time. Okay. And how you sequence in business has an impact on the results that you get. Now, I have a strategy of how you sequence depending on what season you're in. We call them launch, build, scale, and exit. I won't go down that path at the moment. However, sequencing for me is what's really, really key. So if I was going to distill it down at the end of the day, though, that there's finite things that I know, whatever season you're in, if you follow these things, you're going to grow. I would say there's 3 things. Okay. These 3 things enable us to scale offices, scale home life, scale life. All right. Here's what they are: marketing. So you need to understand and get to a point where you need to know how to make it rain with leads. Every single business relies on leads, and you need to know how to make it rain with leads. Turn on the tap as much as possible. If you've got one chiropractor, you've got a certain amount of capacity you can handle for new patients in the chiropractic business world. Okay. If you've got 5, you've got 5 times the amount of capacity you can handle for newies. If you've got 8, you've got 8 times the amount of capacity. So being able to generate and make it flow with leads is absolutely critical and essential. And for years, I used to get stuck in this kind of way of like, oh, it's not all about marketing. And I'm not saying that it is, but you've got to have that ability. And I love when people are like, oh, all you do is internal referrals. Sure, internal referrals are amazing. We all agree with that. We all love it. However, there's all these opportunities that are available to us out there that if you learn or you get someone on your team that learns them, you can start to compound it and you get more internal referrals anyway. So I've never been about, oh, it's just internal referrals. I've always been about, let's help as many people as possible. And through that, we've got more internal referrals anyway. So marketing systems, process, and procedure. Number 2 is you've kind of alluded to it already, but team. Every person has genius and everyone has unique genius. So business building, in my eyes, should really just be renamed, and it should be renamed to team building. Okay. So business building should be called team building. And that's why a lot of people struggle in the early days, because they're a one-person team. They have assets in certain areas, but weaknesses in other areas, and they're trying to sit in positions of weakness. And that's not what it's about. It's about hiring people that have strengths in those areas of weakness, because they're going to do an amazing job at it. Okay. So number 2, it's about team building and continually evolving your team and asking yourself the question, where I'm stuck right now, what's the kind of person I need to get on my team that's going to help me get through that stuck point? That's what it is. Okay. And then the third part of building a business is structure. We call it structure. And structure is the way that you manage and operate the business. So it's the way that you have KPIs, accountability rhythms, meeting rhythms, training rhythms. It's the structure through which you run the organization. So in the beginning, most of us have no structure. And then we have maybe a once-a-week team meeting. And then as we grow and evolve, we start to learn, hopefully, that there's different kinds of meetings, different kind of trainings, and that structure creates accountability within the company. And that accountability within the company is what allows you to grow every single quarter. So if I was going to distill it down to, what are the 3 things that I could leave you with, it would be understanding marketing, team, structure. And if you become really good at those 3 things, you will find it very, very hard not to be extremely successful.
Yeah, I know it's a big conversation. I mean, on any of those things, we could dive down a deep discussion. And what you said about marketing is really important. And I think it's, there's so many different ways to market your practice. Internal referrers are amazing, but they're not, do you rely on those without doing any external marketing? You're missing the boat, right? There's lots of different pieces that people can be overlooking. And then you can also market really great and have all these influx of new people potentially and not have the structure or the systems or the team to deal with it effectively. So there's a lot of different pieces of the practice growth puzzle. What do you think about the idea of, really looking at, and you already said seasons, like, but in some people's practice lives, there's sometimes seasons of growth and sometimes there's seasons of attrition and maybe cleaning things up. And sometimes there's seasons of
Yep.
things being stagnant. Like, do you think that there's always the desire or the need to be in growth mode, or can that fluctuate depending on the practitioner and the practice and the business?
Yeah, good question. I think as humans, we're designed in a way to grow and evolve. I think that life isn't necessarily about the achievement of a goal. It's progression towards a goal that satisfies us.
Yeah.
So, and that can be like anything in your life. You look at your body, you look at your fitness. You might, have this desire, I want to get to this level of this percentage of body fat, this much muscle mass, these kind of figures in my different various lifting categories or whatnot. And it's not as if, you're just like unhappy until you hit that goal. Tony Robbins taught us this. It's progression towards the goal that keeps you satisfied. It's like, woohoo, I'm 3 pounds down from last week. Now I'm 7 pounds down. Now I'm 10 pounds down, right? Now I'm 11 pounds down. So my mindset on this, Melissa, is like this. And I read this in the book, The Slight Edge. I don't believe there's such thing as plateauing. So when people are kind of like, oh, well, now I'm just in a plateau season, I'm like, no, you're not. You're going in one of two ways. You're either slowly getting better and you're improving. I call it synergy. Okay. Synergy means things are coming together, they're growing, they're improving. You're either in syntropy, okay, synergistic, or there's entropy. Entropy means things are falling apart, so they're slowly going downhill. There's no such thing as plateauing. You're either in syntropy and you're coming together and you're growing, or you're in entropy and things are falling apart. And the only difference between the two is, physics has taught us this, is energy. So it's where you're directing and putting your energy into, okay? Now, I think it's okay to have seasons of plateau or maybe even seasons of decline, so long as that is your conscious desire and you've set out and you've kind of looked at that and be like, okay, cool. I'm really happy where I'm at. Now, the focus point for this next period of time is going to be X. And, X means that this is how much energy is going to go into business. But I also think that if your team structure is set up around you, you can counteract for that because, a great business really, and a great practice business is one that's scaling and it's durable. And durable means that it's not reliant on one person. And a healthy organization, you talk to the real hardcore business people out there, they will tell you a healthy business is growing every single quarter. Do you think Apple has like years that they shrink or like 3 years that they shrink, or like Tesla has years they shrink? Their stocks go up and down. But if you look at, the focus point of those companies, their focus point is returning for their shareholders and their investors every single quarter and growing every single year, right?
Do you have an idea or an estimate or an opinion around what would be good growth objectives percentage wise for the average docs? And I know that you work with a lot of docs who have large, high volume, high income practices, but there's docs of all different types listening to the show. And is there a percentage or a range that you would advocate for, or they would be healthy to look for?
Yeah, definitely. And look, just going back to your question from a minute ago for a second, it's kind of if you rephrase that question as well. If you said, hey, do you think there's seasons that chiropractic should like plateau or shrink? I don't know. What would be the answer to that question? I have my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts, Mel?
No, I don't ever think, I'm with you 100%, like we should always be evolving. But I think when I think about my personal clinical practice, when I've launched a new initiative, so when I started launched my first podcast, my energy was divided, right? I was super excited and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go over here. And so I was really happy that in that stage of my life, because my kids were younger and I was doing a lot at home and I was on my own, that my practice stayed stable. And then it grew after. It stayed stable once I got the podcast rolling. And there was that turned into a whole other business I didn't even expect. So for me, and I when this comes up when people add a baby to their family or, a new associate, there's sometimes in a practice, in a business, like I just think it's an organic growing thing that the growth comes in different ways. The growth isn't necessarily a jump in volume. Sometimes the growth is maybe there's not any numbers that change, but you brought in a new team member and that growth is expanding and you want to get, things stable before you have like more volume growth. So I think the growth should look at
Yeah.
in multifaceted kind of ways. So yes, I think we're designed for growth and evolution, but it's also
Yeah.
interesting how people evolve with their own personal journey in life. And, some people are in practice and then they decide, yeah, like you, like they're really great at
Yeah.
helping other people. They start coaching. So maybe they grow and their practice changes in their volume, but they do different things, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's an
Yeah.
interesting conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. But what you just described there is growth. Like if someone looked at your
Yeah.
life as a whole of Melissa at a 10,000 foot level, not just the silo of practice, like Melissa grew. Second to
Yeah.
that, it sounds to me, Mel, that was a conscious decision. It was like, wow, I've got this
Yeah.
podcast. This is awesome. I want to go all in on this thing.
Yeah.
So it's a conscious decision. It wasn't just like, by chance, the practice started to stagnate. I'm not really sure why. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also important what you said, finding the joy in the evolution, the joy in the like essentially the joy in the journey, right? Is that we're
Yes.
designed like Tony, like we should keep evolving and trying new things. And then if you look at your quarter and go, oh, the numbers are not what I thought they would be. Okay, what did I do
Mm,
differently? What did I
mm.
gain? There's always that reflection piece that I think is really invaluable for people.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
What
I
was my
agree. So coming back to your question was around what's a good growth percentage that we should
Yes,
have in a
thank
year,
you. I
right?
was, I was like, what were we
I
talking
gotcha.
about here?
I got you covered. Don't worry, right? So yeah, a good growth percentage. Okay, I look at it like this. You ready? So inflation. What do they say? Base level of inflation is 4 to 5%. So
Yeah.
that in itself is a sign that if you're not growing by 4 or 5%, you're shrinking. That's the first thing. Okay. And
Mhm.
get this. Ready, guys? You should pay very close attention to this. Something that cost $70 to $75 in 2018. Okay. For it today, and right now today is 2025, to have the same level of profitability, that thing that costs $70 to $75 today should cost $101. Okay. When you trace back inflation from 2018 to 2025, and I actually did this, I looked at every single year, compounded over, okay, it should cost $101, give or take a couple of dollars, depending where you are in the world, to have the same level of profitability today. You want examples of that? Okay, where I'm at here, I filled up, well, actually, no, I don't fill up fuel, but the fuel around me is roughly around $2.40 a litre. All right. We do liters here, not gallons. So it's
Yeah.
$2.40, but you can translate it to gallons or
We do the same thing in
actually,
Canada.
yeah, you got liters in Canada, actually. You're good. 2018, our fuel costs were probably $1.40, $1.50 a litre. So that's like double the price. You look at cigarettes. I remember when I was a youngster, my granddad, I used to go buy cigarettes for him. I'll never forget it. And I used to pay $3, give me a $5 note, and I'd pay $3 for those cigarettes.
Mhm.
I don't smoke, but I'm told, and I researched this, that cigarettes here in Australia now cost $60 for a packet. And the packet is half the size of what it was. It used to have 50, now it's got 25 in it. Okay. So you look at the inflation in that. So long story cut short is you should be going above the rate of inflation if you simply do fee rises properly. Most chiropractors don't raise their fees at all. If you simply do fee rises properly, you can keep above inflation and get profitable every single year more. Okay. So then as a base rate, we kind of look at like base case scenario, worst case scenario, and then best case scenario. Base level rate, you look at 13 to 15% growth year on year, which is healthy growth. If you're going to invest money in a fund, in a mutual fund somewhere, and that's going to give you 12 to 13% year on year, that's considered pretty aggressive investing and pretty good investing, right?
Mhm.
However, 20% is considered great growth. However, in saying that, that's an average. And I don't like to work with averages because we have years that we're growing with like over 100%, 200%. We have years that we go from $1.2 million in collections to $2.5 million in collections. So how do
Mhm.
we do that? Because the whole point in business is that you can compound growth at a much higher rate. So let me just give you a quick mathematical thing here. If I do a new patient marketing avenue, and that new patient marketing avenue costs me $100 to bring somebody in, okay? And I know the average lifetime client value, so LTV, lifetime client value. Let's just say the average lifetime client value is 3,000. All right. So it cost me $100 to bring him in, and it's $3,000. So 100 in proportion to 3,000. You work out the percentage in that. Okay, that is a massive, massive percent. Like most marketing that you can do in chiropractic businesses will return 100%, 200%, 500%, 1,000%, 2,000% growth on the money invested in it. Right
Mhm.
now, you might say, "All right, I own a practice, so I'm the CEO, so I actually make money on the profit." Great. Let's be conservative and you work on a 20% profit margin. And it costs you $100 to get a new patient in, and your lifetime client value is $3,000 and you have a 20% profit margin. That's $600 profit. Okay. So
Mm.
1 to 6, that's a 600% return on investment on your money. But you would be stoked to put it into the fund for a 10% return investment. And you just got 600% return on investment. So in situations like that, and this is why marketing is something that we really dedicated ourselves to like nailing. I looked at that, and marketing is the money printing machine that if you're getting 600% return on investment, I'm looking for as many dollars as I can to put into that machine.
Yeah, it's again, it's such a complex, interesting conversation and growth, right? Because I think it's also
Mm-hmm.
relative to the individual practice. There's lots of docs I talk to that have no desire to grow something, to have other practitioners, to have other people. And then there's lots of docs that want to do that. So it's, for me, having done so many conversations over
Yeah.
so many years, it's very fast to me. It's a fascinating conversation, but also one that is very individual. And if you think about your own transition, like when you first became a chiropractor, was your goal always to have a massive business, or did that grow with you with time?
Yeah, I always definitely had a goal. I don't know, it wasn't as refined as what it is now. And, I didn't like spend as much conscious thought into it, but I definitely always had a goal to grow. I don't know, when I was going through chiropractic, I always looked at, these like corner shop chiropractic places that looked like dodgy. And I was like, well, how can people take us seriously if I remember, it's funny, I'd had this one office, funny story, that I used to drive past on the bus, and it looked so broken down and dingy, and the lights weren't working, and all the major buses would go past it. And there was these tacky mirrors in the front that said chiropractor in mirrors. And I remember just looking at this thing going, when I go into a business, I want to go into a business that's a beautiful space. Like I look at your space where you are there now, I can literally see hardly any of it. It looks beautiful. So I want to go into a space that looks beautiful, that makes me feel like I can trust this place. And this chiropractic office was the complete opposite of that. And at the end of the day, it struck me the reason that it's like that is because of money and because of resources and because of, care factor. Now, funny
Mm.
story here. If we go full circle, when I graduated, I used to drive past this office multiple times a week for like 5 years. When I graduated, within a year and a half, I bought that office. So that office went in the market for sale, the one I used to look at, and I bought that office. Within 6 months, we're out of that space, and we just like absolutely exploded that office. And the reason we could get out of it is because we exploded the office. We had a lot of resource, we had great money, we had great cash flow. We put it
Yeah.
into a beautiful space, and now that office still exists, and the space is absolutely phenomenal, right? Like
I was
it's a
gonna say you probably
high-end fit out.
redecorated it when you bought it.
Yeah, well, we moved out of that and got a location that's like, 10 times the size, literally. And
Yeah.
it's a high-end fit out. Like when you go in there, people always comment on our space and how our space looks. And, while that's great, the thing that I'll never forget is what it used to look like. And the primary
Yeah.
difference was the person driving it, the care factor, and the resources available to me, which I made available to me. I didn't get it gifted to me. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that your environment says a lot about your brand, about your experience, about who you are. I mean, that's another whole conversation. And I know we're running out of time, but there's a lot of things I still want to ask you. So I'm gonna just I'm gonna just jump with, I think, maybe the thing that is most potentially valuable to listeners, and that is the idea of associates, because you have a number of them, and I'm sure you've got a process or a way of bringing people into your team. Someone who's looking to bring an associate in, or someone who's looking to become an associate, do you have any general suggestions about how to make that a really smooth process?
Yeah, from both sides, for someone looking and for someone
Yeah,
that's an associate wanting to be an associate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
at
the
least
answer,
from your perspective of hiring someone. Like if a
okay.
doc wants to bring an associate in.
Yeah, and you know what, Melissa? It's the same from both ends. The answer I'm going to
Okay.
give you can literally apply from both ends. So check this out. You can tell, guys, watch this. Try and think of a time that you met somebody recently in your life. All right, Mel, you and I can resonate on this, no problems, right? Because we
Mhm.
connected a few weeks ago. You
Yeah.
can pretty quickly tell if you resonate with that person within a few minutes. Like literally the first time us jumping on Zoom, within 2 or 3 minutes, I can tell. I'm like, oh, Melissa's on my wavelength. And then she says
Mhm.
to me, you can swear in the podcast. I'm like, shit, man, I'm being really good. I'm being really good here, right? So I'm like, I haven't
That
sworn
was
yet,
mostly
but
to cover myself, though.
right. I'm like, man, I'm on the right podcast here. Okay. I get it. Like you can tell. So the reason why you can tell that you're vibrating at the same frequency is because at the end of the day, you might not know what it is, but this is what it is. You have an alignment in core values, which means there's certain things ways that you view the world that's in alignment with the other person. Okay. So when you have a contradiction in core values, that's when it starts to become challenging. So watch this. If you have a core value around growth and development, if you love learning and growing, right? So you invest in yourself, learning and growing. When you meet a principal or when you meet an associate that equally loves learning and growing, and you know what, I've been to this event or this seminar, or this happens, great, that's alignment in core values. That's a tick. So what most principals do is they make the mistake where they haven't refined clearly what are their core values, what are their business core values. They say, you know what, in our business, here are the 6 things that we stand for. Okay. 1, health. We believe that there's a groundwork to all happiness. Okay. If you have health, you have whatever goal you want to achieve in your life. If you lose your health, you have one goal, it's to get your health back. So we take that seriously. Right? So we all want to be healthy. I expect all of my team to be healthy, to be exercising, to be looking after their body physically, chemically, emotionally. Okay. You know, we have another core value in our office of excellence. I expect excellence in all areas of life and all areas of business. And whether that excellence means that patient notes are being done and listings are being put onto files and subluxation patterns and phases of subluxations, whether it's lived out like that, or whether the excellence is in how we communicate honestly in day 2 and give people honest recommendations and truthful communication, not just what somebody wants to hear. You know, so you look at what are your core values. You go spend time refining and defining them, bring them to your conscious awareness. And then you're looking for someone that has alignment in those core values. That's number 1. And then number 2, you want to have alignment in vision story. So if you and I were sitting here now talking about podcast, right, and how we want to, you know, create this amazing podcast, our vision stories would need to be aligned, right? If I'm sitting here talking about, yeah, and you know what, I want this podcast, Mel, that we're going to do to go to everyone, right? Not just chiropractors, but everyone. And you're kind of sitting there going, I don't know about that. My fire really is to get it to chiropractors. We're a bit misaligned in our vision story there. So if we don't identify that, that will later resurface and create issues when I'm there going, all right, let's get it out to everyone. Let's JV with these guys that are, you know, I don't know, accountants and these guys that are lawyers. And you're like, accountants, lawyers aren't really floating my boat, Bobs. It's like, I want to focus on chiros, right? Misalignment of vision stories.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I mean, I do think, like you said, it applies to both people, right? Whether you're looking to become an associate, really get clear on your reasons, the kind of practice that you want to join, your philosophy within chiropractic, your skills, your current life stage. And then if you're looking to bring an associate in, really give some thought to being clear first and foremost, again, on why you want to bring an associate in to grow your practice or to support your practice, but also what are the most important values that you have, and looking for someone, you know, that fits them. It reminds me of, you know, God bless him, rest in peace, Arnaud Bernier. When I heard him speak at a seminar one time, and he said, you know, practice is like meeting new people in practice is like dating. And he was like, sometimes you meet someone and you're like, oh, it's fast and furious and you're super excited and there's a connection. And other times, you know, it's a little slow and steady and you're kind of just taking your time. And I think people, you know, we always want to meet people where they're at in our practices and try to align with them on that level. But I think the same thing applies to interviewing, whether it's someone to add to your front desk or to help you market or to be an associate. You've got to find that right vibe for the right fit to really become a long-term, you know, established good fit.
100%. And you know, that vibe that you describe, you know, I guess that's what humans have spent time trying to define. Well, what is that vibe? And I just look at the same thing in a relationship, right? When you're dating and you're looking, okay, is this my person? Like, are we going to get married or whatever you believe in? You know, for me, it was always marriage. Like now that you look back on it, I feel as though a large part of the connection, outside of the physical connection, a large part of the connection is, are we aligned in core values, which is the way that we view the world? So, you know, if I view, for example, family as a primary core value, but then I have this person I'm dating and they couldn't care less about family and they're kind of like, I want to move to the other side of the world and this, that, the other, right? Oh, that would create friction. And same thing with vision story. If I have this vision story, I'm like, you know, I want to save humanity through chiropractic and I want to build these great offices and help all these associates. And this other person, you know, that's not in their vision. They're kind of like, well, no, you know, I don't know, I want to live, I don't know, right? But it's not an alignment and vision. That creates issues, you know what I mean? So I feel as though it's the exact same thing. You know, too many associate principal relationships are based on assumptions and fantasies rather than clear expectations and agreements that are based around core values and vision story for what you're trying to achieve.
And friction always leads to problems at some point.
Yeah. And can I just add one quick thing here? So it's a quick 30-second story. I remember my first associate interview. The principal asked me that. I was an associate for 6 months before I bought my own office. the principal asked me, so what do you want to achieve this year? Like, what volume do you want to get to? And I had no frame of reference for like what a good volume is. Like my experience in chiropractic at that point was student clinic, and a good volume was 8 adjustments in a week. So I was
Right.
like, well, what do I say now? Do I go too high and this guy's going to think I'm a Fruit Loop? Or if I go too low, is he going to think I'm an underachiever and I don't want to like achieve high level things? So I kind of like was like, oh, I don't know. Like, and what the answer that I said was the volume that he was seeing. Okay. Because then when I said that answer, he was like, oh, great. You could tell that that was like a good answer because that's kind of his frame of reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Later, it turned out that that wasn't what I wanted. I want something like actually different to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just an example there of how important alignment and vision story and core values are.
Yeah, I think like you said, we're all evolving, and I can definitely tell that you're that kind of person, that growth oriented person, even in this short time we spent together. So before we wrap up, a couple of quick fire questions for you. You ready?
Yeah, love it. Oh, I'm
Um,
ready.
okay. How do you define success?
Great question. I would say be careful how you define it because you're going to spend a lifetime pursuing it. Success, I would say, is alignment between your core values, your vision story, and your behaviors.
Hmm, that's great. What lights you up?
What lights me up? If I was going to give 1 2 word answers, what lights me up is
You got to keep it clean.
it is damn. All right. Well, I haven't sworn so far, so I'll keep it that. But what lights me up, I would say, is living on purpose in everything that I do.
Yeah. And what recharges you?
What recharges me? Uh, Look, the normal things, I would say normal. In day to day, the things that recharge me, exercise. I am a big fan of like sauna, hacking into your body, adjustments, of course, the chiropractic lifestyle. I have monthly routines and then quarterly routines. I'm just about to embark on my quarterly routine, right? Which is vacation, holiday time. I find that that gives me perspective on things. So yes, I schedule those out a year in advance.
Yeah. Well, you and I are heading off to the same, not the same destination, I don't think, but on holidays within days of each other. So I really appreciate that sentiment. I've been saying it forever. I feel like if you want to increase your productivity, take time off because you get creative, you just get restored, you reconnect to things that matter to you. And we're not meant to, we're meant to hustle for what we want, but that comes with a flow and you have to recharge yourself. It's been really, really wonderful, this conversation with you. Listeners, I know that you've taken a lot from it. We went in a lot of different directions. You'll find in the show notes all the ways that you can connect with Dr. Bobby, and I'll also throw in some show links. I definitely did a podcast on values. So I'll put the link in for that show and why they're important and how you can connect with them. If you want to connect with Dr. Bobby, what's the best way you'd like people to reach out to you?
Most of the easiest way, and people always ask for resources, especially things like marketing calendars. How do you put together your marketing calendar? We get like 160 plus newies a month. I just do it all through Instagram. So just add me on Instagram. You'll see behind the
Okay.
scenes of how I make it all work. I am Bogdan, Bogdan, Ilijasevic, Ilijasevic. If you type in Bobby Ilijasevic, I'm sure I'll pop up. Add me on Instagram. If you want a copy of my marketing calendar, just message me calendar and my team will send it over to you. But yeah, Instagram is where I show you all the behind the scenes, day-to-day life, how I make it happen, things that are on my mind, vacation time, all of it. So it's the easiest place.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate your growth, your commitment to growth, your commitment to inspiring other chiropractors in the work that you're doing in your own practice and with your coaching. I love that you're the kind of person who makes things happen. Not everyone is able to do that, and you certainly have a commitment to yourself and your own health and your growth. So thanks for spending a little bit of time with me.
Likewise, Melissa, thanks for having me on. It's been awesome. I have a ball doing these things. I love doing them. And I love doing them with people like yourself. So thank you for everything that you do for chiropractic because I know that resources like this is absolutely instrumental to my growth. And I know that it's going to be responsible for the growth of thousands, dare I say it, tens of thousands of chiropractors. So thank you for everything you
Yeah.
do.